And both sides are weighing in on Harris's trip to the border. Let's bring in those both sides. Melik Abdul is a Republican strategist. Brian Derrick is a Democratic political strategist and founder of Oath. Good morning, gentlemen. Always great to see you. Brian, let's start with those newly released numbers from ICE. They came after Harris's appearance at the border. Trump has claimed she is directly responsible. How does she and, of course, other Democrats respond to this concern as we look at these numbers?
Well, to Alex's point, we have actually no idea what the time period is that those numbers are referring to. And so I think it's a shame that Republicans try to make this seem like a new issue once every 4 years when it's time for a presidential election, when in reality, a majority of the people that are being referenced in that report were in the country when Donald Trump was president. And so what I think Harris needs to do is reclaim the narrative and be at the border telling the Americans what she wants to do as president.
Malik, Trump has made immigration and border control central to his campaign. He's championing mass deportations, which is, of course, very important to the Republican base. Is that a policy that undecided voters are looking for?
No, I doubt it very seriously. And Donald Trump won't do a mass deportation any more than any other president would do it. But I think what Donald Trump is leaning into is a lot of the anxiety and a lot of what we're seeing with the number of migrants, illegal migrants, who have killed Americans. And I think that is something that Donald Trump is tapping into. And whether those numbers were under Donald Trump or under Joe Biden, the fact is that Kamala Harris won't be able to use that to her advantage because Donald Trump, as the underdog, will be able to run against her, blaming Kamala Harris for everything that is now happening under her administration.
And he hasn't laid out how he would do those mass deportations, to your point. Brian, let's talk polling. It shows that Americans believe Trump will be stronger on the border. Harris vowing to carry on President Biden's crackdown on asylum, impose order on the southern border. She said that just yesterday. Critics are arguing it's too little, too late. Brian, your response?
I think that she's actually shown a tremendous amount of improvement on trust that she has from the American people in tackling the border issue, as well as the economy. And the reality is she doesn't need to beat Trump in the polling on those issues. She just needs to close the gap enough that other issues like healthcare and reproductive rights are also going to be extremely salient and push her over the top. So her strategy needs to be to just cut into his margin on those issues to do just enough to get to 50%.
Malik, let's turn to those battleground states and, of course, the new Bloomberg Morning Consult poll. It shows Harris is narrowly leading Trump in 6 critical battleground states. I mean, these are razor-thin margins. While they're tied in Georgia, I mean, look at how close these numbers are. What does Trump need to do at this point in the race to ultimately take the lead?
I think that Donald Trump needs to continue to focus on the economy. He needs to continue to focus on the immigration issue, but not just those middle class issues that actually appeal to lower class Americans, not just our anxieties, but as Kamala Harris says, our dreams and our aspirations. But those numbers are really interesting when you dig into them, because it actually, if you look at the Morning Consult poll, Donald Trump is actually polling about 16% with Black voters. In the CNN poll, it's a similar thing. In that CNN poll, Kamala Harris, in the CNN poll that's referenced, only about 60% of her voters are voting for her because of her. They're voting against Donald Trump. Well, that is voting for her because they're against Donald Trump. That's a significant thing that she needs to really figure out in this election.
And the three of us have talked about how polling is just a snapshot of what people are thinking right now at this moment. Brian, what are your thoughts?
Well, I would say that Kamala Harris is in a really strong position given the amount of fundraising that we've seen over the last few weeks, as well as the number of people showing up at these events. I think that the enthusiasm from the Democratic Party for her as a candidate cannot be underestimated because she's really turned things around in an incredibly short amount of time. As Mark Cuban said just this week, to go from being behind to even slightly ahead in this amount of time means that you definitely are doing something right.
I have to say, I can't help but wonder about Mark Cuban's political aspirations, but we'll keep an eye on that as well. Melik Abdul, Brian Derrick, gentlemen, thank you for joining this morning.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.